Hi, I'm Brendan, and this is an excerpt from The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman. Then girl and demon looked up at the solitary bear. He had no demon. He was alone, always alone. She felt such a stir of pity and gentleness for him that she almost reached out to touch his matted pelt, and only a sense of courtesy toward those cold, ferocious eyes prevented her. Yorick Björnsson, she said. Well, Lord Fa and Fardakorum have gone to try and get your armor for you. He didn't move or speak. It was clear what he thought of their chances. I know where it is, though, she said, and if I told you, maybe you could get it by yourself. I don't know. How do you know where it is? I got a symbol reader. I think I ought to tell you, Yorick Björnsson, seeing as they tricked you out of it in the first place. I don't think that's right. They shouldn't have done that. Lord Fa is going to argue with the Sisselmen, but probably they won't let you have it, whatever he says. So if I tell you, will you come with us and help us rescue the kids from Bolvangar? Yes. She didn't mean to be nosy, but she couldn't help being curious. She said, why don't you just make some more armor out of this metal here, Yorick Björnsson? Because it's worthless. Look, he said, and lifting the engine cover with one paw, he extended a claw on the other hand and ripped right through it like a can opener. My armor is made of sky iron, made from me. A bear's armor is his soul, just as your demon is your soul. You might as well take him away, indicating Pantalaimon, and replace him with a doll full of sawdust. That is the difference. Now where is my armor? Listen, you gotta promise not to take vengeance. They done wrong taking it, but you just gotta put up with that. All right. No vengeance afterwards, but no holding back as I take it either. If they fight, they die. It's hidden in the cellar of the priest's house, she told him. He thinks there's a spirit in it, and he's been trying to conjure it out, but that's where it is. He stood high up on his hind legs and looked west, so that the last of the sun colored his face a creamy, brilliant yellow-white amid the gloom. She could feel the power of the great creature coming off him like waves of heat. I must work till sunset, he said. I gave my word this morning to the master here. I still owe a few minutes' work. The sun set where I am, she pointed out, because from her point of view, it had vanished behind the rocky headland to the southwest. He dropped to all fours. It's true, he said, with his face now in shadow like hers. What's your name, child? Lyra Balakwa. Then I owe you a debt, Lyra Balakwa, he said. He turned and lurched away, padding so swiftly across the freezing ground that Lyra couldn't keep up, even running. She did run, though, and Pantalaimon flew up as a seagull to watch where the bear went and called down to tell her where to follow. Yorick Björnsson bounded out of the depot and along the narrow street before turning into the main street of the town, past the courtyard of the Sisselmen's residence, where a flag hung in the still air and a sentry marched stiffly up and down the hill past the end of the street where the witch consul lived. The sentry by this time had realized what was happening and was trying to gather his wits, but Yorick Björnsson was already turning a corner near the harbor. People stopped to watch or scuttled out of his careening way. The sentry fired 2 shots in the air and set off down the hill after the bear, spoiling the effect by skidding on the icy slope and only regaining his balance after seizing the nearest railings. Lyra was not far behind. As she passed the Sisselman's house, she was aware of the number of figures coming out into the courtyard to see what was going on and thought she saw Fardakorum among them. But then she was past, hurtling down the street toward the corner where the sentry was already turning to follow the bear. The priest's house was older than most and made of costly bricks. 3 steps led up to the front door, which was now hanging in matchwood splinters, and from inside the house came screams and the crashing and tearing of more wood. The sentry hesitated outside, his rifle at the ready, but then as passers-by began to gather and people looked out of windows from across the street, he realized that he had to act, and fired a shot into the air before running in. A moment later, the whole house seemed to shake. Glass broke in 3 windows, and a tile slid off the roof, and then a maidservant ran out, terrified, her clucking hen of a demon flapping after her. Another shot came from inside the house, and then a full-throated roar made the servant scream. As if fired from a cannon, the priest himself came hurtling out with his pelican demon in a wild flutter of feathers and injured pride. Lyra heard orders shouted and turned to see a squad of armed policemen hurrying around the corner, some with pistols and some with rifles, and not far behind them came John Fa and the stout, fussy figure of the Sicilman. A rending, splintering sound made them all look back at the house. A window at ground level, obviously opening on a cellar, was being wrenched apart with a crash of glass and a screech of tearing wood. The sentry who'd followed Eorik Björnsson into the house came running out and stood to face the cellar window, rifle at his shoulder, and then the window tore open completely, and out climbed Eorik Björnsson, the bear in armor. Without it, he was formidable. With it, he was terrifying. It was rust red and crudely riveted together, great sheets and plates of dented, discolored metal that scraped and screeched as they rode over one another. The helmet was pointed like his muzzle, with slits for eyes, and it left the lower part of his jaw bare for tearing and biting. The sentry fired several shots, and the policemen leveled their weapons too, but Eorik Björnsson merely shook the bullets off like raindrops, and lunged forward in a screech and clang of metal before the sentry could escape, and knocked him to the ground. His demon, a husky dog, darted at the bear's throat, but Eorik Björnsson took no more notice of him than he would of a fly, and dragged the sentry to him with one vast paw. He bent and enclosed his head in his jaws. Lyra could see exactly what would happen next. He crushed the man's skull like an egg, and there would follow a bloody fight, more deaths and more delay, and they would never get free, with or without the bear. Without even thinking, she darted forward and put her hand on the one vulnerable spot in the bear's armor, the gap that appeared between the helmet and the great plate over his shoulders when he bent his head, where she could see the yellow-white fur dimly between the rusty edges of metal. She dug her fingers in, and Pantalaimon instantly flew to the same spot and became a wildcat, crouched to defend her, but Eorik Björnsson was still, and the riflemen held their fire. "Eorik," she said in a fierce undertone, "listen, you owe me a debt, right? Well, now you can repay it. Do as I ask. Don't fight these men. Just turn around and walk away with me. We want you, Eorik. You can't stay here. Just come down to the harbor with me and don't even look back. Fardacorum and Lord Fa, let them do the talking. They'll make it all right. Leave go this man and come away with me." The bear slowly opened his jaws. The sentry's head, bleeding and wet and ash pale, fell to the ground as he fainted, and his demon set about calming and gentling him as the bear stepped away beside Lyra. No one else moved. They watched the bear turn away from his victim at the bidding of the girl with the cat demon, and they shuffled aside to make room as Eorik Björnsson padded heavily through the midst of them at Lyra's side and made for the harbor. Her mind was all on him, and she didn't see the confusion behind her, the fear and the anger that rose up safely when he was gone. She walked with him, and Pantalaimon padded ahead of them at both as if to clear the way. When they reached the harbor, Eorik Björnsson dipped his head and unfastened the helmet with a claw, letting it clang on the frozen ground. Egyptians came out of the cafe, having sensed something that was going on, and watched in the gleam of the anbaric lights on the ship's deck as Eorik Björnsson shrugged off the rest of his armor and left it in a heap on the quay side. Without a word to anyone, he padded to the water and slipped into it without a ripple and vanished. "What's happened?" said Tony Costa, hearing the indignant voices from the streets above as the townsfolk and the police made their way to the harbor. Lyra told him, as clearly as she could. "But where's he gone now?" he said. "He ain't just left his armor on the ground. They'll have it back as soon as they get here." Lyra was afraid they might, too, for around the corner came the first policeman, and then more, and then the Sicilman and the priest, and 20 or 30 onlookers with John Fa and Fardacorum trying to keep up. But when they saw the ground on the quayside, they stopped, for someone else had appeared. Sitting on the bear's armor with one ankle resting on the opposite knee was the long-limbed form of Lee Scoresby, and in his hand was the longest pistol Lyra had ever seen, casually pointing at the ample stomach of the Sicilian. "Seems to me you ain't taken very good care of my friend's armor," he said conversationally. "Why, look at the rust, and I wouldn't be surprised to find moths in it too. Now you just stand where you are, still and easy, and don't anybody move till the bear comes back with some lubrication. Or I guess you could all go home and read the newspaper. It's up to you. There he is, said Tony, pointing up the ramp at the far end of the quay, where Yorick Bjornsson was emerging from the water, dragging something dark with him. Once he was up on the quayside, he shook himself, sending great sheets of water flying in all directions till his fur was standing up thickly again. Then he bent to take the black object in his teeth once more and dragged it along to where his armor lay. It was a dead seal. Yorick, said the aeronaut, standing up lazily, keeping his pistol firmly fixed on the Sisselman. Howdy. This is Philip Pullman's The Golden Compass, the first book in the His Dark Materials trilogy.